What's going on? What's going on, people? I have a question to ask. How good do you think the wages in our contract, our current contract right now, is going to hold up with inflation going up through the roof right now? Inflation is going through the roof. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I have brought up before that the way our contracts are being negotiated is heavily flawed. And specifically speaking about wages, cost of living, inflation, and pattern bargaining, and that type of stuff, right? So we see what's going on overseas, and how it's affecting the gas prices around the country, right? Now, I spoke about this. There's a lot of transit workers who cannot afford to live in the city in which we work, right? So you have workers who live in Connecticut, Jersey, Pennsylvania, sometime in Maryland, and they travel back and forth to come to work, right? So how is that going to impact them? And we have made the rallying cry for a long time about, transit workers need easy passes. It's true, because you would be surprised how many workers do not use their Epic passes, right? A lot of transit workers do not use the subways, right? Because we don't live here. We don't, a lot of us live in other places outside of New York City, in which we don't need these subways, right? So we need what you call that, easy pass and things like that, just to come back and forth from Staten Island. If you live in Jersey, it's like $20 a clip, right? So that affects the day-to-day living of a transit worker. Now compound gas onto that. Now, the reason why I say our contracts are negotiated with major flaws is that when you look at the way they try to describe the inflation, right? Oh, you're getting a raise above inflation. They base our future raises. So right now we in a 4-year contract from 2019 to 2023, right? They base those wage percentages according to the past inflation rates, right? So they say, inflation was 2.5%, which is a lie. I will explain that in a second. They would say inflation is 2.5%. So we got you a 2.75 percent raise. So you're winning. That's untrue, because the union administration, the people who negotiate our contract, lie about what the true inflation numbers are. If you go into a website, it's called BLS. Don't think the radio station. It's called BLS.com. It stands for Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it actually explains and lists the inflation rates in New York City, metropolitan area, and it's always higher than our actual wage percentages. If you notice, the union never put out any type of document of where they getting their inflation rates from, because then they will be defeating their own lie, right? But those wage percentages that the union say that we get is not the actual number to beat in the inflation, right? And they will also use something called pattern bargaining. And I think that pattern bargaining is more of an excuse for, the union administration to use when they don't get us the raises that we deserve. So they'd be like, oh, you got 3% raises, but it's in line with what everyone else is getting. So FDNY got 3%, NYPD got 3%, sanitation got 3%, corrections got 3%. So 3% is what everyone got. Well, let's put this in perspective. All of those agencies make about $15,000 to $20,000 more base salary after 5 years than a New York City transit worker, right? 3% on 100,000 is different from 3% on 70,000. I'm just using those numbers. It's not the same amount of money. So if those agencies who make more base salary wise, not even including overtime, can't include overtime in this, if they make more than us base salary wise, then their wage percentage is 3%. Our wage percentage should be at least 6%. right? So transit workers should not be getting raises anything lower than 3%. Really, 6%. Transit workers should not be getting no raises below 6%. Another thing that hurt us was that we got to wait longer to top pay now. Just a few years ago, it was only 3 years to top pay. Now it's 5 years. That hurt transit workers, because not only are we being outpaced in the cost of living inflation in this city, it's taking us longer to actually make the maximum amount of money, right? Take us very long to make the maximum amount of money. So all of this is going to hurt transit workers, right? So how good is our contract going to hold up when it's flawed economically? We're not going to talk about healthcare. We're not going to talk about anything else. We're going to talk about economically. It is flawed economically, right? It is poorly negotiated, right? It's I don't even understand how we not even making a push for better or for more, and the problem is, I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. A lot of transit workers didn't come from real jobs, right? When I say real jobs, I'm talking about jobs with a pension, jobs with 401k and things of that nature. A lot of us didn't have real jobs coming in here, right? You don't see teachers leaving being teachers to be transit workers, or sanitation workers leaving to be transit workers, right? You might see a correction officer leave corrections to be transit, but it's not because that transit pay more money or transit is better. People leave because of the schedule, the violence that's actually happening in the jails. But on the books, correction officers packages are way better than transit worker packages. You don't see a firefighter leaving being a firefighter to be a transit worker, because we don't really have the good jobs. We don't really make the money to survive in the city. You have police officers saying, they can't afford to live in the city. And if they cannot afford to live in the city, then how can a transit worker afford to live inside of New York City, right? It just can't happen. It just doesn't work. So everything that's going on overseas with the war, and the gas prices is now going up. That's another expense, extra expense. Transit workers who don't live in New York City have to drive to and from work, right? They possibly have to take their children to and from school. They have to go to grocery shopping. They do their religious thing to and from church. People rely on their cars, rely on their gas. And what the union don't do when they negotiate a contract, first of all, like I said, they base our wage percentages on past inflation, not what future inflation may be, right? So they need to negotiate better and create a cushion for transit workers, that if something does arise, like inflation does go up to X amount percent, like basically double our percentage, because they are saying that inflation may go up to 7% or something like that. And they saying that these gas prices may not drop for another 6 months or the remainder of the year. We got the summertime coming up. Right now, gas prices are very close to $5. When summertime comes, it's going to be at least, you could say $7, right? You could possibly say $7. It won't even surprise me if it becomes $8, right? This is an extra expense that transit workers, along with tolls, and like I said, other things, day-to-day expenses. And don't think that gas, it's only going to be relative to gas. All other cost of living expenses is going to go up. Rent, if you're renting, groceries, childcare, everything is going to increase. And these increases are not covered by our contract. We are actually going to lose, right? We are actually going to lose. Now, granted, just to be fair, nobody forecasts what can happen or what will happen, right? But that's why it's very important to get the highest number. I'd rather be safe than sorry, right? It's to get the highest wage increase percentage-wise as possible to cover whatever we may encounter in the future, because 2022 is going to be a very hard year for transit workers. Mark my word. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I released this right here, the blueprint, the New York City transit workers' prosperity. And I talked about wages, healthcare, women issues, work rules, cope and pack, upward mobility, quality of life, health issues, work education. You know, I talked about all those things here. And if the union actually follow this, the union administration actually follow this, transit workers will finally begin to prosper in the city in which we work, like firefighters, like NYPD, sanitation, and those good people over there. We will finally begin to prosper and be able to survive in the city in which we work. If the union members pick this up, you could download it on progressiveaction.info. Read it. Start holding your union reps accountable when they at the negotiation table, right? Start electing people who have your interest and who want to go after the things that mean something to you. It boggles my mind why transit workers do not have Easy Pass. We are members of the MTA. We are employees of the MTA. And just like how they give us transit passes, they should give us Easy Passes. A lot of people don't know, I believe in Long Island Railroad, that the conductors of the railroads, their spouses and significant others, they get passes to ride the railroad, right? They get passes to ride the railroad. And our spouses or whatever don't get any of that. So they should at least give us Easy Pass, where it will lessen the burden on transit workers economically, right? Definitely lessen the burden of transit workers. But like I said, this right here, download it, read it. You have any questions, ask me questions, but it's time that we start holding union reps accountable, right? A lot of people think that the union reps are our boss. They are not our boss. They are there to represent the members' best interests, you and our best interests. We must start holding them accountable. You know, they are not our boss. They can't fire us. Yeah, we know what they do. They'll target you. They'll feed you to management and all that other stuff. But they work for us. We do not work for them. And us as members, we must start taking back that power. We must start owning that power and know what our power is. And part of knowing our power is educating each other. That's why the blueprint to New York City transit workers' prosperity is very important, because it educates you to know what your power is and what we should be expecting and what we should have as far as transit workers are concerned. So look, I'm going to predict it's going to get worse for transit workers. 2022, economically, things are going to go up. It's going to be a strain. And we got to start from now asking for more for our contract. Easy Pass, higher wage percentages, better health care, better dental, better work rules, and a change in the Tier 6 pension. In fact, I believe that there needs to be a change in the pension, period, for transit workers. And since the union administration like to talk about pattern bargaining, we would like to see a pattern pension for New York City transit workers. And when I say pattern pension, I mean our pension should be reflective of NYPD, of FDNY, of sanitation, of corrections, of 22 and a half and out any age. We need that here in New York City Transit. Like I said, it's time that we start educating ourselves on the issues, know what we should be going for, knowing what we want, and the time starts now. The time do not start when it's time to go to the negotiation table. The time starts now, and let's get to it, people. It's that time. Stay educated, stay involved, get involved, and know what we fighting for, because the fight is now. Catch you guys later. Peace.